Well, joining us now live from Jerusalem is a member of the Israeli Knesset, Dan Illouz. Thank you very much for joining us today. Let me just get your take, first of all, on the UN chief's words, the calls for his resignation. Is that something you want to echo? I mean, you're now denying visas, aren't you, to UN representatives as some sort of punishment. Is that the right way, do you think, to handle this?
What the UN Secretary General did was a complete disgrace. I mean, we have to remember that the UN was founded in order to stop exactly the type of massacres as the one that we have seen Hamas commit on October 7th in Israel. And by comparing what happened on October 7th and any other thing that Israel might be right doing or not be right doing, legitimate criticism of Israel is always legitimate. But by comparing these things, it was as if he was comparing a firefighter with an arsonist and trying to make a balance between these two things. We have to be very morally clear. There are times where humanity needs to be clear. When the Nazis were fighting the Western free world, then it was very clear who the good guys and who the bad guys were. When ISIS was fighting against, again, the Western world, Europe, or all of these other places, it was very clear who the good guys were and who the bad guys were. It's also very clear here. Hamas burns people alive, burns babies alive, babies. They rape women and flaunt them around. They abduct elderly without their medication. There's no comparison to be made. There's the good guys, and that's Israel, a modern democracy, a liberal democracy that tries to abide by international law as much as possible. And then there's Hamas, an evil regime that needs to be destroyed.
But is it the case, Stan, that you're having now to fight a diplomatic battle, if I can put it that way? I'm just looking at the remarks from President Erdogan in Turkey. Israel's attacks on Gaza and supporting them amount to assassination or mental illness. He then went on to say Hamas is a liberation group waging a battle to protect its land, not a terrorist organisation. I mean, quite extraordinary remarks, but this is a member of NATO.
I have to say that this is these comments are also outrageous. And just to be clear and precise, there is absolutely no occupation in Gaza. Israel left Gaza in 2005 in the disengagement plan, a plan that I personally opposed because I thought that it was dangerous to Israel. Unfortunately, we saw that it actually was dangerous for Israel. Israel left Gaza in 2005. There's absolutely no occupation in Gaza. That's all fake news that's spread by Hamas supporters who are absolutely evil people who just want to massacre Jews. That's what it's about. It's not about occupation. It's about the genocidal ambitions of Hamas. Now, when you're talking about diplomatic support for Israel, I do have to say that the Western free world is right now very united with Israel. I'm very happy about that. It's a positive sign. I hope that as Israel continues defending itself, they won't forget the reasons that brought us to defend ourselves, and that the reasons that won't let us accept a situation where Hamas survives this war.
Dan, also just to ask you, talking of positive signs, Qatar has said that they hope there will be a breakthrough on hostage releases soon. Could you expand on that at all?
So obviously for Israel, one of the top priorities is the release of the hostages that are currently held by Hamas in Gaza. I remind you, it's from small babies to the very elderly people and all the ages in between that are being held hostages in Gaza. It's a top priority for us, whether we do it militarily or whether we do it diplomatically. All options are on the table. I have to be frank and honest. Qatar is a supporter of Hamas. It's a sponsor of Hamas. It hasn't been a positive force. It's been a force that fueled the hatred of Hamas. And so I'm a little bit skeptical about the things that Qatar says. But any way that we can...
Crucial to these negotiations, though, in terms of getting hostages out. Is Qatar not vital player here, or is Egypt more of a player?
So there are many different players. Obviously, the negotiations can't be discussed on live television, but there are a lot of different players. Some of them are some that you mentioned with. There's a lot of people that want to see the hostages released, and we're hoping for that to happen. The President of the United States also made it very clear that this is one of his top priorities, and we thank him for that.
Dan Illouz, member of the Israeli Parliament, the Knesset, thank you very much for joining us and updating it with your response.